Hey there guys, what's going on? In today's best class setup in Modern Warfare video, we're actually shifting this one over to Warzone. I know you've probably been waiting for me to make some class setups for Warzone, and I've got a pretty good one, a pretty special one for you guys here today. We've got the absolute best of the best at the moment. If you manage to work your way to $6,000 and get a loadout drop, or if you're lucky enough to have one spawn near you, you can equip one of your preset loadouts, which is, in my opinion, a really good option for Warzone. I actually do really like this. It's like a uniquely Warzone mechanic, which basically removes a little bit of the randomness from the Battle Royale. Almost slightly brings it more towards a skill-based matchup rather than who got lucky and found the better items. So with this overpowered Warzone class that I've put together, you'll be able to dominate in the Warzone, of course. We've got two weapons here, the best perks and lethal and tactical for Warzone here. I did tell you guys that the Warzone content was coming. I've finally got my friends together and we've been playing it a lot more recently, and it's a load of fun. But just before we do get into our overpowered class here, let's try and get this video to 10 likes. The support on the videos has been absolutely wild recently, so I gotta thank every single person who's even looked at any of my videos, left a comment, left a like, just watched anything, subscribed. You're all doing fantastic work. I've got loads of videos lined up for the coming weeks while you're all trapped inside, so make sure you do subscribe with those notifications turned on so you don't miss any of the exciting stuff that we've got lined up. We are, of course, finally at 500 subscribers. We did hit that overnight, which is super exciting. I wasn't actually expecting to get there today. I thought it'd take a little while longer, but of course it did happen, so I'm still thinking of things we can do for a 500 subscriber special. So if you do have any ideas, make sure you do leave a comment to let me know what you would like me to do for that 500 subscriber special, like a giveaway or something, and I can sort that out. So again, stay tuned for that. Right, let's talk about this overpowered Warzone class. So I've been keeping my eye on Twitter recently and also watching a couple of other videos on the subject, namely the exclusive ace. The number one weapon for damage per second in Warzone is actually the AUG with the 5.56 rounds. Not the M4, not the Grau 5.56, the Ram 7 or anything like that. Apparently the AUG has the highest DPS out of the weapons in the game, which I think is actually pretty cool. Normally in multiplayer, we judge your weapon's viability based on time to kill, which works for when everyone has a static health pool in multiplayer where everyone has the same amount, whereas in Warzone, the health numbers on pretty much every player are different at every single second of the game. This is where damage per second is more prevalent. So of course, we are basing this class around the AUG. We've also got a sniper here in this class with a thermal sight because we are sweaty as hell and sometimes this game just feels like Sniper Elite. You can just pick people off that have no idea where you are, which is just so super fun. So let's jump into our class here with all the attachments and weapons and everything. So we'll start off with our perks and grenade choices here. We'll take a little bit more time than we usually do for a slightly more in-depth explanation than our usual class setups. So perk 1, like usual, you do have a couple of different choices, but they are different options to what they normally would be for multiplayer. So because of the prevalence of one of the weapons I'm about to talk about, you probably end up needing cold-blooded. With this, we become undetectable by AI targeting and thermal optics. What's important about this is the thermal optic bonus. I mean, you're definitely still visible on a thermal scope, you're just harder to see than somebody who doesn't have this on. If you don't have cold-blooded on, somebody with a thermal scope can just pick you off from basically across the map and there's not a lot you can do about it. With cold-blooded on, you're a lot harder to hit. You're still sort of visible, but again, you don't stand out as much. Scavenger is also a nice option in the early game where you've got limited bullets, but I feel like the use for this diminishes pretty quickly. EOD is also another good option here just for that explosive resistance, but I feel like, again, just because of the prevalence of thermal scopes, you do have to run cold-blooded here. Plus, if you are running it, it'll make sniping with a thermal sniper a little bit easier as well. It's harder to get counter-sniped when the person looking for you can't see you because you have cold-blooded on. Perk 2 for this class is, of course, pretty straightforward. We do have Overkill. It boils down to this. I think having two very powerful weapons is way stronger than any of the other available options in the perk 2 slot. Sure, I would love to have Ghost to stay off that radar, but I feel like we do more work and the game's way more fun when we've got two insane primaries. Perk 3 is a little bit more open-ended. You can pretty much choose whatever you do like the look of here. I usually rock with Tracker just so I can see enemy footsteps and death markers. Tune-up is also a pretty nice option if you are playing in squads just to get that 25% reduced revive time. But again, this is a slot that you can play around with. If you're planning on holding an area, you can even get shrapnel, get that extra piece of lethal equipment, just chuck it down, look after your stairways and stuff like that. You can also do that as an option. Battle hardened as well if you do get stunned and flashed a lot. Like all these stats, or all these perks rather, are pretty good at doing something, so you're never going to be let down what you pick here basically. In my opinion, the lethal slot isn't really super important. You'll definitely find a variety of lethal options on the battlefield and they're all pretty strong. They all sort of do their own thing in a very good way. They're all very effective at what they do. It does really depend on how you want to play. I normally run a C4 just because I have something to pick for this slot. And lastly, of course, the tactical slot is not the stim shot this time, which I think is really surprising. I thought it'd be always stim shot all the way, but I've actually found out that the heartbeat sensor is incredibly useful. Being able to detect enemies that are near you is obviously super powerful. Like, one of the ways that I die, particularly in like battle royales all the time, is just running headfirst into a house without even thinking that somebody could be in there, and then you just get killed because you weren't expecting somebody to be there. So if you do pull up that heartbeat sensor just before you run into the house, you see a dot on there, you're a little bit more cautious. I mean, of course, people are running ghosts at the same time, so it's not 100% accurate, but if you are playing squads, at least one of the people in the enemy team is probably not going to be running ghosts, so you'll be able to get an idea that there might be more than one person in there. So it's just a good idea to have a heartbeat sensor because it is really, really powerful. Right, so we're going to look at our AUG here first, and we're going to run through the attachments with a bit of explaining. So firstly, in the barrel slot, we've gone for the big boy. We've got the 622mm long barrel. This gives us a huge boost to our damage range, bullet velocity, and recoil control, while reducing our aim down sight speed and movement speed. This is one of those barrels for the AUG. Pretty much every single gun in every game in Warzone and multiplayer alike would like to shoot a little bit further, a little bit faster, and be a bit more accurate. And of course, the AUG here is no exception. With the map being much, much larger than anything in multiplayer, we want as much damage range as possible. You want to be hitting those shots at sometimes 50 plus meters, so getting that extra damage at maximum range is really important. Warzone, of course, does play a lot slower than regular multiplayer, so you can definitely afford the handling and mobility reductions that we do get from having the larger barrel here. But also our other attachments are able to cover these negative stats, so that's not too bad. I'll talk about a fantastic class building combo when I do get down to the rear grip slot. This is the most powerful barrel for the AUG, and that's our first attachment in this overpowered AUG setup. Next, we do of course have the stock slot here. We've got the Forge Tac CQB comb. Really simple choice here. We're picking up a little bit of aim down sight speed here again with the larger barrel and other slower attachments that we do have here. We want to get some handling speed back. This is the perfect attachment to help us get those sights up quickly. I mean, there isn't really much else to say about this particular slot. It's really powerful, and that's why we've included it as the second attachment for this overpowered AUG setup. Next, we do have a pretty underrated attachment in this game. In the underbarrel slot, we do of course have the Commando foregrip. With this, we do get recoil stabilization and aiming stability. These stats help with the horizontal recoil of the AUG and help make us pretty accurate. Similar to the recoil control bonus that we do get from the long barrel, this does help us fight at longer ranges and will help us pick off those targets that aren't far enough away to warrant pulling out our sniper. Again, there's not really much else to say about this here. This attachment does help us stay on target, and it's still somehow underrated in this game. You put this on pretty much any weapon and you'll already perform a little bit better, especially if the weapon is heavy on the horizontal recoil side. So again, in the underbarrel slot, we do have the Commando foregrip, and that's the third attachment for our overpowered AUG setup. Next, in the ammo slot, we have got the granddaddy of attachments. We've got the 5.56 NATO 60 round drum mag. With this, we do get a huge boost to our damage and range and ammo capacity. Normally, we'd rock up with the 30 round magazines, but in Warzone, we can afford to have as many rounds as possible. The mobility and handling negatives that we do get from this really don't come into play with our other attachments because it just works out that way. It's balanced a little bit better than it would be normally. Plus, Warzone does play a little bit slower than regular multiplayer, so this isn't too much of a negative to have this. This is the attachment that gives the AUG the highest damage per second in the game, which is really, really powerful. Having 60 of the most powerful rounds in the game is, of course, very, very strong. And that is, of course, why we have included it in the fourth attachment slot in this overpowered AUG class setup. And lastly, we are of course looking at the rear grip slot here, and you already know what we're going to talk about. The stipple grip tape for the aim down sight speed and sprinter fire speed. These are the best stats in the game in my opinion, and they work really well for this class. I mentioned earlier about a combo that I do use on all of my class setups. If you are using the biggest, longest barrel option, you'll always want to be running the stippled grip tape. I use this on all of my classes, and it does work out pretty well for me. It really does cancel out the negatives that you do get from equipping the larger barrels while still maintaining that range and damage. So our last slot for this overpowered AUG class setup is of course the stippled grip tape. So of course this is our complete AUG class setup here. We're going to continue with the next weapon that we do have. I'll just jump over to that now. So like I said, we are going to look at the second weapon here, and it's the other star of the show. You can either use the HDR or the AX-50 in this slot, as they both have a one-shot headshot kill in Warzone. Other snipers like the Dragunov and the Kar98K do not have a one-shot headshot in this game. I'm using the AX-50 in this class, but the HDR is also a very, very powerful option and actually has faster bullet velocity than the AX-50. So this choice is of course up to you. They're both good. and you can sort of pick what you prefer. Both of these snipers are very, very powerful. So our first attachment, of course, is the monolithic suppressor. With this, we do get sound suppression and a boost to our damage range. In multiplayer, this would be a bit of a sin, but in Warzone, having a silent sniper with boosted range is incredibly powerful, especially with the other attachments that we've chosen here, which we'll talk about in a little while. When you are fighting with this sniper class setup in Warzone, it does feel like sometimes you're playing a completely different game, almost like it's like Sniper Elite or something, or like Sniper Ghost Warrior. You can just pick people off from so far away, it almost feels very, very unfair. Just the extra range that this does give you is really powerful, and that does work with our barrel as well. So in the first slot, we do have the monolithic suppressor for this overpowered AX-50 class. In the next slot, we do have the barrel. Here we've got the 32-inch factory barrel for the increased damage range, bullet velocity, and recoil control. This is a really powerful option to increase our range and make our shots hit the target slightly faster than they normally would, and it makes the second or third shots even easier to hit. The Singard Arms Pro barrel is also a very good option here until you do unlock the last barrel option. I think this unlocks at around level 28-ish, between level 28 and I think 30 something. So as far as sniping goes, this is the perfect second attachment in Warzone, and one of the best attachments in this overpowered class, just because of the damage it does give us, a little bit of extra boost to our bullet velocity, and of course the recoil control. You do have to deal with the negatives of having the heaviest barrel, but a couple of other attachments do help counter this, so it's not too much to worry about. For the optics slot, we do have the real star of the show. The thermal sniper scope, or the thermal dual power scope, are just completely filthy in this game. Highlighting most people as bright white is just too powerful, and probably just something that the game will have to live with for the time being until they either ban them or just nerf them completely. Like, they just either need to nerf this scope somehow or buff cold-blooded. Either way, thermal scopes in Warzone are just too powerful at the moment, but you can't really live without one. It does make us aimed outside slightly slower and reduce our aiming stability a little bit with the dual power scope, but that's not too much of a factor when you're just picking people off for fun, as they have no idea where they're being shot from. With this, you've got one of the best attachments for this class, and probably one of the best in Warzone for the whole at the moment. Definitely a perfect third attachment for this overpowered class. Next, in the stock slot, we do of course have the Singard Arms Assassin. This gives us a boost to our aim down sight speed, and boy do we need it here. With our other attachment options that we've chosen, we are actually really sluggish in terms of handling, so we do need this. It really does help us get those sights up and start picking people off as quickly as possible. And again, when we're set up, we are absurdly powerful. It almost feels like that campaign mission where you're just picking people off and just the enemies can't even do anything about it because you're that far away and there's just nothing that they can do. Aim at the head and you just drop people super quickly. It's really satisfying and basically overpowered. But as long as this type of class setup is allowed in Warzone, as long as you're allowed to have a thermal sniper in this game, we are of course going to use it because it is busted. So this is a perfect fourth option for this overpowered class. And lastly, you of course know what we're about to say, and it's exactly the same thing as we did say for the AUG. Stippled grip tape in the rear grip slot is of course a fantastic option, and that is, you know what this does and you know why we need it. Same as the stock slot, like I said, this does boost our handling after having 3 attachments that do slow us down, is pretty powerful. Again, just helps us get those sights up and on target. The sprint to fire speed can often save your life if you are running around with the sniper for some reason and you forget to swap back to your AUG. You can just get those sights up fairly quickly. Just a super powerful last slot in this class setup. So that is of course our complete AX-50 class with all the attachments there. As you can see, these attachments are designed to make you as powerful as you can be at range, especially with the thermal sniper scope or the dual power one, which just makes you super busted, and just not anything that counters this in the game at the moment, and they probably need to nerf this. But like I said, this is everything that we do have in this overpowered class. I will show the AUG on screen again, just in case you did miss it from before. This is the attachments that we do have for that. And these are the attachments that we do have for the AX-50. This class is busted. I can personally see balance changes that only come into effect Warzone. That'd be pretty interesting. It'd also be interesting if we do end up getting separate class setups from multiplayer. Like, having the same class setups in multiplayer and Warzone kind of makes sense. Like, it's just an easier way for them to sort of maneuver having around the same game, be on the same files and stuff like that. But I feel like we do need separate classes in Warzone and multiplayer, just because it's a little bit annoying having 1 or 2 of my class setups taken away because of Warzone. Like, just let us have separate. Like, I'm sure that's going to come soon, and I'll just deal with it for now. This is the best class setup in the Warzone at the moment, so do try this out, and you'll end up getting very close to those wins. I haven't got one yet because I'm a bit shit, but I've come close a couple of times. I've come second, I think, 2 or 3 times now, and I'm sure it's not too far away. I think I had a 15 kill game, and I finished 4th because the game just decided that I wasn't actually supposed to win that one. Again, thank you very much for watching this one, guys. I do appreciate it, of course. A little bit of a longer class setup because we did have a lot to go over. But I feel like it's good to get these Warzone class setups going and out there. If you guys did enjoy this one, make sure you do leave a like and do subscribe if you are new around here, of course, so you don't miss out of any more of the Warzone classes. We do, of course, still have multiplayer class setups coming in the future. We are, of course, like I said already, at 500 subscribers now, and of course still growing over that number all the time, which is just wild. Such a good thing to happen. I love it so much. Again, thank you very much for watching, guys. I do appreciate it. Of course, I will see you in the next video. Bye!